lot of the time in traditional EB-5 1.0, 2.0, when you're in the mezz position and you have Wells Fargo or CIBC as the senior lender, you have a very professional company in with the project managing the capital outflows and working with that developer. So you could kind of just trust that things were working because Wells Fargo is in there lending the money and the developer's building it. If all of a sudden you start taking away that institutional person there, then I think it's even more important to have that independence where whoever's looking after the EB-5 money is separate from the developer and truly acting as a third-party lender with the investor's best interest in mind. Because all of a sudden you've crossed where now there's a conflict there and there's no other watchdog in the deal. So I would say that that's probably one of the important things to focus on, especially if EB-5 creeps up in that capital stack and starts displacing some of those more traditional senior lenders. I think everybody got a little bit scared of what does it mean that you have to have these direct jobs. And then when you start going and backing into the numbers, knowing that it's 800,000 instead of 500,000, like what portion of the capital stack is EB-5? We ran a lot of different scenarios and found like the rules didn't actually really change anything. None of the projects that were viable before weren't viable now because of this change in the law. So even though it's in there, it was kind of a red herring for us, and we realized business as usual, at least on that side, especially with the increase from 500 to 800,000. Most of the deals we work on are longer construction time frames anyways, but even for some of those smaller deals that we looked at of a year construction time frame, they were still able to meet those requirements, and I think it excludes very few, but it was a very important change to know about, although it didn't really impact the capital structure. And I would say that all the deals that we've been working on, they still have a very large institutional senior lender involved. So we haven't found a deal where it makes sense to put EB-5 in a senior position. And also we don't work on deals that are not already fully capitalized, and most banks don't just want to be there as a backstop until we find the money. So I don't really see us moving into that type of position. But I will say that as you can have a larger portion of the capital structure as EB-5 where it bleeds into what traditionally would have been the senior, where you're not getting 60-70% loan to cost anymore, and you can take that senior down in terms of leverage and use EB-5 as more of a stretch mezz piece to lower the overall portion of the deal that's senior, which the senior banks love, and make it so that there's a little bit less of that overhang. So I would say that we're not going to be replacing senior completely in that, but it does make it where historically, if a great developer could go out there and get 75% loan to cost, I mean, there wasn't really any room for EB-5 in there because we're not doing it without developer equity. So with the new lending environment and the higher interest rates from banks, it makes it where EB-5 is a lot more competitive, even competing with that, and more of the deal can be EB-5, which also leads to an easier takeout in the back end. I mean, when we're speaking with investors, there's always the two key concerns. First is immigration risk. How do I know I'm going to get my green card? And if you have a project that's already under construction and fully capitalized, and you know that it's going to be completed, often enough jobs are already in place, that's the first checkbox of you can be assured that the project, it's in a TEA or it's in a rural area, construction's going on, the jobs are there, you know you're getting the green card. So the next question, how do I know if I'm gonna get my money back? And that's where it really matters choosing the asset class in this environment, who the developer is, what the financing plan looks like, where the capital's coming from, and just eventually what's the disposition of it. So as of now, we've done deals in many different asset classes historically, and I mentioned we also believe in housing. We're like in single family housing because you can modulate how quickly you're building based on what the demand is. And when you're doing an EB-5 investment that's a 5 to 7 year time frame, there's a lot of wiggle room there where even if we have a horrible recession, you can ride it out as long as there's not a large debt overhang where you have to refinance it. So we're very actively looking for deals where there's lots of ways to mitigate the risks going into a deep recession, several different types of exit plans, and minimizing the type of catastrophic failures that you saw after 2008 and other recessions, and avoiding projects that have that exposure.